Today we'll be looking at digital citizenship, and the two things we'll be concerned with is what concerns should we have about online privacy and general use, and what are some resources to help with education and evaluating digital tools. Some research we looked at about social media and happiness on teen statistics. So there was a research study done in Great Britain that followed 40,000 individuals, 40,000 families over a number of years, and the URL to that study is at the bottom of that slide. 1 hour of social media use lowered overall satisfaction of life by 14% among teens. That is a pretty significant lowering of overall satisfaction of life in terms of feelings about life amongst teens. I heard a podcast the other day, Hidden Brain, if you're familiar with it, an NPR podcast, that reported on a Tel Aviv study that tracked a company that basically shut off all social media use for its employees and then slowly allowed certain employees to get on social media. So it gave the university a perfect control group to look at, and they found similar statistics amongst adults with their overall satisfaction, their overall happiness in life did reduce compared to those that were not allowed to be on social media still. So some pretty significant studies or pretty significant statistics from studies have been looked at here. For our students here at Westlake High School, we did ask this question on a survey. I believe it was 3 weeks ago. We pushed this survey out to students before our freshman rotations during the PSAT testing, and this was reported in our digital distractions and social media webinar that our own students here at Westlake High School actually felt that half of them felt that there was no impact from social media on their life. 45% thought that there was a positive impact from social media, and only 7% of our students felt like there was a negative impact from social media. This, of course, was one question. This was not a longitudinal study that was done on a cohort with a control group. This was a question that we pushed out to our students. So this does not correlate with national and international studies on the use of social media. However, the difference is this is not a study that was done. This was an actual survey question that was done specifically for the students. Some ideas for social media and happiness. These are actually from our students from the same survey. Some ideas to help with social media and actually digital distractions is use the do not disturb feature. Constantly being notified of incoming posts, tags, photos, text messages really does have an effect on people and does cause some amount of anxiety. So using the do not disturb feature really lessens that feeling of anxiety by just simply blocking the notifications, and then the user is able to check those different applications when they find time for it. Social media breaks is another one that quite a few students said they use. They take social media breaks for periods of time, possibly even days at a time, just to focus on different things aside from social media. Device-free activities are very important, especially during family time. Things that I would personally look at device-free activities for are definitely family time, but also time when you wake up and time before you go to sleep, just to allow yourself to reflect on the day or to think about the day and how those things were happening. And of course, a lot of my coworkers and friends, and this is more, I believe, an adult action than a student action, but I've looked at just deleting the apps altogether. So we usually have our phones with us at all times, and our phones to some extent can begin to run our lives for positive and negative aspects, but deleting those apps allows us to still check those social media notifications when on a computer or laptop, but doesn't constantly berate us with those notifications and postings. So just some tips, and these tips actually came from our Westlake High School students. The next thing we're going to look at is privacy and fraud, which has had a lot of news attention lately. There's been some very large hacks that have happened with a lot of people's information getting stolen from large corporations. There have been some large companies that have been hacked themselves, and even some of the items that have been stolen, they're not even totally sure about. There's been attacks against our own government websites, as well as even the Internet of Things being used to shut down certain companies by just causing so much traffic, it shuts down. I believe it was about a year ago when Amazon and some other large companies were temporarily shut down because of all the web traffic that was pointed at them through IoT devices. So this has become a very hot topic in the news today. And of course, privacy is an ongoing concern. We all have those 44-page agreements that we see through companies like Apple that we simply click agree to. So what exactly are we agreeing to? We're going to look into a couple of those today that may help you in having conversations with your children, and also may help you make decisions yourself about social media use. Our Westlake High School survey, we did look at what apps in particular they use to help guide our thinking and our information that we're pushing out to students. No surprise here, 74% of your children use Instagram, 73% use Snapchat, and only 34% use Facebook. Facebook, as we thought would happen, is looked at more of a our generation application as opposed to the younger generation application. The more photo and video sharing applications such as Snapchat and Instagram are more popular with them. This is a trend we've been seeing for the last couple of years to move away from Facebook and even away from things like Twitter. In the social media research that I looked at, and again, the website that I got this from, the epic.org, looks at a lot of privacy and location information. The question was asked, what are we allowing social media companies to do with our information? And through their studies, they found that 7 out of 10 smartphone apps that they looked at share location data with third-party services. So even if the application itself, such as Facebook or Instagram, explicitly states that they will not share your location data with non-users, it also states in many of their privacy policies that they can share information about you and their users with third-party services as they see fit. So this is a little legal jargon workaround to actually use that information to share with other people, and they do sell this information, so they are making money off of it. Another research article that I found with that, which was actually done by AT&T, looked at 20 different social networking sites and found that 19 out of 20 of them shared location services with third parties in a way that would let them associate online activities with actual identities. And 20 of the social networking sites out of the 20 they looked at do leak personally identifiable information, or PII, about their users in some way that will allow outside users or third parties to use that information for marketing purposes or for whatever purposes they would like to use those for. So a lot of our information through those privacy policies, as we may understand it, by the company itself, is being protected to some extent. That doesn't cover the third-party services that it's selling them to, or the ways in which it's leaking our personally identifiable information out. Some of the applications that the students said they used, which are the big three, they said Instagram, Snapchat, and Facebook. I looked further at the privacy policies to get some information. And so Instagram itself shares location on photo map unless the user specifically turns this feature off. Instagram started this tool last year, I believe, and once you turn it on, so it asks you once if you'd like to use photo map, and most people say, of course, I want to use my location in this certain instance. That is by default on from that point forward. And so basically every time your kids or anyone that uses Instagram, if they've turned on this feature, every time they post something, a location, a GPS data location is shared with that photo. So people can track, users can track where the Instagram posters actually are at any moment that they are posting. Something you might want to look into is actually using a camera feature of a smartphone and then posting on Instagram later and not sharing the exact location, or of course turning the photo map feature off completely. For Facebook, Facebook actually does a lot of research on its own, and they recently carried out a test using location data and provides search feature for all users regardless of individual preference. So this is one thing that I looked at, and this was actually from a Forbes article. The URL is there at the bottom. That Facebook is playing around with our information and the user information in the ways that they can share this and the new tools that they want to bring on. So as opposed to researching on the back end, they're actually using users as quote unquote guinea pigs to then see how these sharing applications work without even our knowledge of them happening. The other one is Snapchat, which is as I've seen, probably the least known of the social media applications by parents and people of our age, and least used for that reason or for that purpose. Snapchat's new Snap Map feature, which came out less than a year ago, shares the user's location whenever they were using the application. So that doesn't just share the user's location when they post a photo or add to their own story, which is a feature of Snapchat, but actually shares the user's location at any time. It's very strange that one user could get on Snapchat and figure out where another user was just by them having the application open. And as we're all aware, applications on smartphones now do not close unless you explicitly swipe them up or close them out yourself. They will stay open in the background. So that means a tool or a company like Snapchat could be tracking you at all times, but this is in addition to companies that already do this, such as Apple and Google, that are constantly tracking our locations based on their devices and based on their operating systems and using that data as well. So there's a lot of information online and a lot more research being done about location services. And I encourage everyone to look into how companies are tracking not only your child's location and information, but your own. It's a very important thing to know about. Some questions. I had some personal questions about legality. So what about our privacy? What about our location? How can this all be used, and what's legal? And I found an interesting case that is actually coming up before the United States Supreme Court on November 29th this year. And the question is essentially, is our location and other data on social media, the metadata that's collected, is it protected as a basic right? Are our likes, or our feelings, or our words that we put on Facebook protected as our own private property? Or is that something that can be collected and used against us without a warrant? The case in question actually takes the individual carpenter who was arrested and convicted of several thefts based on GPS data acquired from his phone. The phone was confiscated without a warrant, and they pulled 13,000 points of GPS data from the phone and used those to match Carpenter's location with where the robberies happened. The appeal actually happened because of the Fourth Amendment, unreasonable search or needing a warrant to search, basically. And so it's coming before the Supreme Court to see if that case holds any ground. So it's a very interesting case in terms of how our data, how our metadata is used, and if it belongs to us or not, or if it's property of another company, if it can be used against us in any sort of way. As you can see, it's not just if you're a crook, don't carry a phone, what we're looking at here, but how is that information that is collected on us? Whose is that, and what rights do we have to that? So it's a very interesting case that's coming up before it that I'm looking forward to following and seeing how the Supreme Court rules on. Another thing I looked at was online fraud, and there was a recent study that looked at 2015 compared to 2016 fraud. Incidents of fraud rose 16% in 2016, affecting 15.4 million U.S. consumers, is what the research shows. As we know from the Equifax breach and some other things that have happened this year, those numbers are bound to increase in 2017, especially when we talk about online fraud and stealing of people's personal information. So what does that mean, online fraud, and what necessarily do people need in terms to get information on us? And there's really three things that somebody would need to essentially commit fraud and possibly open an account, take out a loan, open a credit card in our name. And that is essentially our name, our legal name, our birth date, and our address. And with these three things, a thief could commit fraud, could pose as us online, could do a variety of things. And so I challenge you to think right now, yourselves and your students, how many of us post this publicly on a weekly basis on social media? How many accounts do you have that are your full legal name? How many applications have you told this is my actual birth date? So it'll post your birth date and everybody can say happy birthday. And how many times have we tagged ourselves at a photo at home, giving our approximate GPS data? And how easy is this information to find? It's very interesting when you start to think about all the times we do this in a week or possibly in a given day. And especially our kids, our students, your kids, how many times they may be doing this and not even posting necessarily just about their home, but where they are at any given moment so people can find them moment to moment. So this is a very important conversation to have with your kids about privacy online, about keeping location services off to protect where they are and protect their privacy, and so that people won't be able to access their location and access their information to take out accounts on them and steal their identity. So just to cover a couple of action points that we discussed, turn off location data on applications is a great way to correct a lot of these privacy issues. Of course, deleting the applications themselves totally would be great use, and only using those applications on a laptop or a computer at home, of course, with the location services turned off. And then don't post personal information. Even my own son, who's 4 years old, I have not used his actual birth date on social media in a post, except for when he was born, now that I think about it. So if somebody really wanted to search for his birth date, they could go find his actual birth photos from where he posted that online. And those are celebrations that we do want to share with people, but it's important to understand how those celebrations can later be used to figure out information about us. And of course, don't post your address, which I think is a given for most people. That's pretty common sense. But in terms of GPS tagging, location tagging on photos and things of that nature, even addresses that show up in pictures that would be posted online, it's important to keep those things private in order to protect your location and protect your identity. The last thing we'll look at before we break into resources is inappropriate posts and oversharing. I've led quite a few talks in the past with parents involving this. Inappropriate posts and oversharing is a pretty consistent issue that we see not only with our students, but often with adults in use of social media. Oversharing can be oversharing information like we talked about in the past with location services. Inappropriate posts can be people expressing personal feelings that maybe they wouldn't express in a room full of peers out loud, but essentially that's what we're doing when we post these things on social media. There are some further inappropriate posts that we'll discuss that do show some issues with our teens, and one in particular is teen sexting. This is not a topic that people like to talk about. This is not a topic that students feel comfortable talking about, but it's very important that we as parents communicate with our kids what the possibilities are, what we hear about, and what the consequences could be for doing these things. So what is sexting and why do kids do it? So there is a great Texas State online portal. It's actually basically a course that you can go through that I encourage everyone that is watching this and everybody I meet to go through with their kids. The URL is right there at the bottom of the slide, txssc.textstate.edu/tools/courses/before-u-text. It gives you some great information on not only sexting, but cyberbullying and online harassment. And so basically the definition we get is the act of sending sexually explicit messages, photographs, or videos by electronic means. I believe this is stated as phones in many places on the internet that I found, but electronic means is actually used that that term is used in Texas law. So I wanted to make sure to include that. So it's not only phones or mobile devices, but it's also computers and also laptops and things like that. So why do kids do it? And this is my own experience with dealing with these issues over the past few years as I've worked in high schools and in this role as instructional technology. Luckily, I don't have to deal with it that much, but one time is too many. And so the things I've seen are peer pressure, number one. Students will give in to other students pressuring them to post photos of themselves or share photos of other people. And so that's an interesting thing to talk about. It's not only sending photos of yourself, but it can be keeping or sending photos of someone else. Curiosity is another issue that we all know from childhood, of course. That curiosity has opened up, or a lot of new doors have opened up for that curiosity with online sharing and with people's digital lives. And of course, lack of education, not understanding what they're doing and understanding the consequences of those actions. And this is really where I challenge everyone to take that action and to speak with their kids about what this is and why they should avoid it. The Texas Penal Code actually covers sexting. Sexting is defined as possession of explicit photos of a minor, even yourself. And this can result in a Class C, Class B, Class A, or actually a felony, depending on the specifics of the case. So I encourage you to look into it. You can obviously Google Texas Penal Code sexting and get a lot of information. But that Texas State course does cover this in great extent and easy to understand format. About what happens. Basically, first case would be a Class C misdemeanor, and this changed in recent years. This actually used to be a felony no matter what. So you look at this writing and you say, wow, even if and this is talking about a minor, so anybody under the age of 18. So if we have a senior at high school that is in possession of a picture of a girlfriend or boyfriend that is 17 or 16, this can actually turn into a felony of possession of child pornography, is the way it's treated in a lot of cases. So it's very important to understand what they are doing and more importantly, what could happen because of their actions to help them make the right decisions on what they're doing. I do see a lot of cases of students not sharing photos of themselves or doing a one-to-one connection on it, but actually getting photos of someone else and sharing those to a multitude of people. And that's a really important thing to look at in terms of oversharing. The things we post online are not private, and that's a very good conversation to have with students, with your kids. They can be shared in a variety of ways. So you send it to one person, and that can be shared with the world, essentially. So nothing is really private online because we don't have control of the way other people share it. Our students, we didn't ask about sexting in our survey, but we did ask them if they had ever regretted a post or lied in a post on social media. 25% of our students reported regretting for posting. This was an anonymous survey. So they reported regret in something they posted. We didn't ask specifics. And 40% admitted to lying about their age or other personal attributes online. So that's a pretty significant chunk of our students admitting to telling a lie, lying about their age, or lying about other personal attributes, maybe where they live or something of that nature, online to a variety of people. So you have to imagine 40% of our students are not lying to their classmates because their classmates would know the truth. They're lying to people they're meeting online. So I can understand the variety of feelings that brings about in parents. I can only imagine. So it's an important conversation to have with your students because obviously this is happening, even on our campus here at Westlake High School, where students are representing themselves falsely to the outside world and are communicating with people outside of our community here in Westlake. The research. So this was actually a research study done by Kaplan, and you can see the URL at the bottom of the screen. So how do you think social media impacts your life was the question I was looking at. And Kaplan looked at a variety of colleges. I believe they surveyed 360 some odd colleges, and 40% of those colleges reported browsing applicants' social media accounts. I believe this is something that is pretty common knowledge by now, that college acceptance boards When students apply, they are not only looking at those applications and reference letters, but they actually are going online and literally Googling the students to see what their activity is online, what they're involved in, and if there's anything negative out there that would come back and make the university look bad in the future as having one of their students post these types of things. So that's a very important and very realistic thing for our students to look at. What are you posting and how will this affect you as you want to get into college? With a close to 100% college acceptance rate here at Westlake High School, I believe this affects 100% of our students and what they need to think about and how they need to be educated in terms of online posting. The second one I looked at was more for adults, but obviously will affect our students someday, is 60% of surveyed employers reported browsing employee social media accounts. I know this from an employee of a school district that when I applied to new school districts, I recently applied to Ames ISD and got this job, and I knew that my social media accounts would be viewed by the board that would be looking at my application, by the committee that would be looking at my application. But it was very interesting to read this, and this was actually done by careerbuilder.com. It was very interesting to look at their research studies in terms of companies actually going on, HR departments going on and looking at social media accounts periodically to see what employees are posting. And I don't have any specific research studies, but I have seen articles based on people that have been let go of companies because of things they posted. And I have heard things about in education from other districts where teachers have come out and spoke out against the school administration or spoke out about a certain student, and that information has gotten back to central office at those school districts, and that teacher has been let go because of those actions. So it's very important to understand we don't have a small room full of people that we're talking to online. We have the world that we're talking to online. That information can be shared out in a variety of ways that we cannot control. So that's a very important point to go over with your kids and something that we stress with our students here at Westlake High School. So some action items to look at in terms of inappropriate posts and oversharing. Number one is just education. So talk to your kids. This is something that is happening. And, we looked at that statistic, 40% of our students admitted to lying about themselves online. And we didn't ask for specifics, but we can only imagine what those lies might have revolved around, whether it be age or interests or whatever. So please talk to your kids about being responsible when posting and not misrepresenting themselves. And I encourage all parents out there to follow their kids' social media accounts. This is not something I've actively done in Ames ISD, but in past districts, I've done this to some extent, especially in the last district I was in for 12 years. So many of my students that I taught in middle school and then followed to high school in this role, I did actively, they friended me on things like Twitter, so I would definitely talk to them and about things they were posting and talk to them about consequences with things. I don't see that as much in Ames ISD because I don't honestly look for it as much in my current role, but I encourage all parents out there to definitely ask your kids about their social media accounts and ask to follow them. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to. They shouldn't be posting anything that you shouldn't be able to see. Or some things you're not going to like, of course, but in terms of things that could affect them in the future, affect their ability to get into a college, or even affect their job in the future, that's something you need to know about. Next, I really want to go through a resource with you that has been invaluable to me over the last couple of years, and that resource is Common Sense Media. Common Sense Media is a nonprofit that is built to basically allow parents and educators to find resources that help us understand all the digital tools out there and all the media out there, such as movies, books, music, and get some fairly unbiased information on those and reviews. I do use the word fairly. I do find that Common Sense Media leans a little conservative from what I would consider from a moderate stance, but that's not always such a bad thing. And it is the most comprehensive tool that I've found as not only an educator, but as a parent to find information on different sources of media and different tools that we find online. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen view here real fast. And we're going to go ahead and look at Common Sense Media. And I'm going to go ahead and go through this a little bit with you, and I encourage you guys to open up commonsensemedia.org. They also have an app that's very user-friendly on smartphones and tablets that allows you to actually tag the ages of your kids and get notification about movies and things based on the age, as well as sign up for emails and whatnot. So we're going to go ahead and look at the parent site first. And first and foremost, we'll just start from the left-hand side. So we'll start with reviews. So reviews, you can look at reviews for new releases, movies, TV, books, games. We'll go ahead and go into movies. And so as we go into movies, we can see a lot of things open up in terms of, and it gives us some filter choices. And over here, so I'm going to go ahead and filter by age. I'm going to go ahead and go to the top end of our high school campus, which would be 18. Chances are, if you have an 18-year-old, you're not filtering what they're watching as much anymore, but a little younger we might still be, so that we can look at all the movies that are out. And I'm going to actually limit those by in theater. And here I see Jigsaw. And so what I can see automatically is a review right here. It gives me a brief overview of the actual movie. Here it gives me some previews of that movie. Parents say, it tells me what parents say, it tells me what kids say, and will give me actually item by item what this movie holds. So for example, does it have any positive messages? They get one dot on this on a scale to 5. Is there violence? That is 5 dots. So you can imagine there's quite a bit of violence in there. Are there positive role models and representations? That is not present in this. It covers sex, it covers language, consumerism, and drinking, drugs, and smoking. And it does this for every movie in its database, and every movie pretty much out at this time. It's a great resource to look into things, especially if you have younger kids, in terms of what is out there. And if you don't have the time to really thoroughly research it or go watch it yourself before your kids watch it, at least you get an idea through this website of what it looks like. As you can see, as I drop in age, it will actually give me more choices. And here I can see a lot more movies that I'm able to look at. The second thing we'll look at is actually top picks. And in top book picks, we have a variety of sub-menus here. So seal of honorees. So this will give you top picks in a variety of things such as movies, TVs, and books. So this is as they look at things and they research them. And I believe the way they categorize these things is based on those scale questions that they were asking about consumerism and drugs and alcohol and things like that. So what is their top picks based on what the reviews are coming in and based on their own staff and how they're reviewing them. Family guides would be next. One great thing on family guides is actually this device-free dinner guide. This is and their new marketing campaign uses Will Ferrell. So there's a funny little PSA that they have on here. But basically, this is something that they're pushing, #device-free dinner. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's put devices up for dinner, and it's a movement that they're trying to push to promote communication, verbal communication, face-to-face communication at the dinner table. I know a lot of us are very busy. My wife and I both have full-time jobs, but we try to make time as much as possible for a sit-down dinner with our son to communicate about the day, communicate with each other, and put our devices down. It's tempting. Excuse me. It's tempting sometimes to pull out that phone to get that calendar when you're talking about events and things like that. But it is a great practice to avoid using those devices during this time. So cool little thing they're promoting through Common Sense Media. The parent concern section. excuse me, is a very robust area that you can look at. I'll look at a couple things here with you, and then I encourage you to kind of navigate around yourself. So cyberbullying, haters, and trolls gives you some great information on what these things are and what our students are encountering. I know with my 4-year-old, I ask him questions and he doesn't tell me. And I know working over the last 20 years with preteen and teenagers that, excuse me, that they won't often fully volunteer information on what's going on with their lives. And this just translates right over to their online life and their digital presence. So this gives you a lot of information about what's going on. If you think your kid's a bully, it tells you some things to look out for. If you have questions, it's got a lot of simple videos and a lot of research and little helpful articles that you can guide through. It also has down here, explore questions by age. So it'll actually allow you to go straight to teens to read about your high schoolers as opposed to having everything lumped in together. Another parent concern that we'll look at, privacy and internet. So this is something that we talked about in our talk. So here's privacy and internet safety. So privacy and internet safety basically breaks down privacy settings. There's a lot of interesting articles out there and great tips out there on privacy settings, but of course that is spread all over the internet. So this is why I like tools like Common Sense Media in terms of finding everything in one shop, basically. What are the ins and outs of parents' controls and smart usernames and things of this nature, and of course appropriate sharing, as we've discussed today. And the last one we'll kind of briefly look at is the social media one, so the Facebook, Instagram, and social media. And this, of course, gives us more information on social media basics. What are the latest apps and websites? So if your child is using something you're not familiar with, you can get information on it here. And of course, some talking points. So a lot of times as parents, it's difficult to talk about a lot of this stuff, especially things we don't fully understand. So this gives you some talking points and some ideas on how to bring this up to students. And something that we do see at a high school level often is this digital drama, things that are happening online. We all went through middle school and high school, and we all know about the cliques that can happen and the peer pressure and the drama that can happen in those circles. And this is still happening. It has just moved to a digital area as well. So these things happen and can spread very rapidly and cause a lot of emotions with students that are involved in those. So it's important to reach out to your kid and talk to them about their digital use and ask them how things are going. And if there's anything they have concerns about, then of course help out in that manner. And of course, if your students do have difficulty sharing with you at any time, myself and Lisa Johnson are always open to talk to students about these types of issues and help them through this process as kind of a third party, kind of an unbiased person. We're happy to do that. Next, we will look at the research area. So I shared a lot of research with you today. Most of that did not come from Common Sense Media, but there is a lot of research done by Common Sense Media. As you can see on the left-hand side, these are all research studies that have been conducted by Common Sense Media or tied to their site that you can look at and browse and find out some more information about. And last but not least, I want to go into a different portal. As you can see at the top, we have been in For Parents, and we're going to go ahead and switch over to For Educators. We have begun using, and I believe things in the past that have gone on at Eanes or at Westlake High School have used some of these resources, but we have begun using some of these resources and pushing them out to students. Something that we did last week was email an activity about oversharing to students. We haven't had that many participants in the activity. It's a self-paced course that takes 10 to 15 minutes. So if you'd like your kid to look at some more information and go through a brief activity, I encourage you to have them open up their Eanes ISD email and look at an email from WHS edtech@eanesisd.net. and it will link them to what's called a Nearpod activity, which is basically a self-paced activity with some different information on it, some informative slides, articles, videos, and assessment questions. So we can actually get some data back from the students and go through that with them and just talk to them about things like oversharing. That's a very easy topic to kind of give you an intro into talking about their digital lives with them. So in this for educators section, I really want to look at this digital citizenship portion, and I'm going to skip straight to scope and sequence. This is where I go when I look for activities to give teachers. When teachers contact me from other districts, this is where I send them, because this is a great area to pull pretty much complete lesson plans in terms of how to guide these conversations and things to look at. So I do want to jump down to the bottom here. As you can see, I have selected grades 9 through 12, and I want to filter by topic. And basically, I want to go ahead and filter by specific topic. And then what I've selected here is privacy and security. And so I can see just the items that are based on privacy and security. So if I want to talk to students about cyberbullying and digital drama, this limits the cyberbullying and digital drama. And when I click on these activities, such as taking perspectives on cyberbullying, it will take me to an activity that includes video, a lesson plan in both Spanish and English. Here is the Nearpod activity I was talking about. Eanes ISD does have a district license for Nearpod, so our teachers and staff can use these activities with our students. If you do find a Nearpod activity that you'd like your student to complete, please reach out via email to us, and we can actually send an individual self-paced course to your student that you can go through with them, or we can pull a PDF of the activity, which actually you can download yourself right here. The other one is an iBook. So if you have iOS devices, Apple devices, such as an iPad, you can go into the iBook store, and there is an actual full iBook from Common Sense Media that's available for free that will allow you to go through lesson by lesson with your kids and talk to them about all these things. And they actually have, if you're familiar with iBooks, they are interactive. So it's not just information, it's actually, or it's not just typed information, it's actually videos and interactive assessments that they can work on. So this is some great resources. This is all for free. This is a nonprofit that you can grab these resources from. And of course, we here at Westlake High School are using these resources, so that's why we really want you to know. The other area I'll go to real fast is games and interactives. And so Common Sense Education has put together some games and interactives. As you can see, Digital Passport is targeted for grades 3 through 5. The things that they talk about in Digital Passport and the way that the user interface is designed for younger kids, as you can see by the cartoonish aspect. It looks like it's got a little Disney movie feel to it. Next is Digital Compass. That's grades 6 through 8. This is more for our tweens, as we call them, or preteens, and this will allow them to go through a series of activities that is based on their age group. And then, of course, our Digital Bites is grades 6 through 12, but targeted more at the teenage years. And this is a little more adult feel to the application, and we'll take them through some activities that allow them some personal choice in what they're going to go look at, and they can find information for themselves in terms of what they're going to do. So this is a great video when you get into here that tells you more about it, and it actually allows students here to have personal choice in terms of what they're going to jump into. So this is a brief but hopefully pretty thorough overview of Common Sense Media and different things that we are seeing that we're concerned about with our students' activity online that we wanted you as parents to be aware of. And as always, we want to make sure that you understand that we are here for not only the teachers and community, or teachers and students, but also the community at large. So if you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and post our email back up here. If you have any questions about anything we've talked about today or other things that have come up in your life, anything around our LEAP program here at Eanes ISD with the iPad initiative, please reach out to Lisa Johnson and myself at WHSEdTech@EanesISD.net so that we can answer any questions you have and make sure we're all on the same page. I really appreciate you guys stopping by. If you're watching this on an archive, we appreciate you watching and hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much.